All right, welcome in. It is Wednesday. It's time for full court press. Rob, last night was the first night in a while that I landed on the wrong ones, meaning had I played more, it would have gone better for me. I think I was like 3-1 on the plays I left off, and of course the plays I ended up on were 0-2. I always find it funny. I'll get your rebuttal to this. I find, listen, I get it. People are going to get, I've been winning for like 6 straight weeks, yet the people that bought the 5% play last night are going to get pissed. It's just the business we're in. I do find it a little funny that like people lose their minds over getting blown out like on a play. Like for me, listen, you're going to be right in this business and you're going to be wrong. Like you're not going to be right every time. In my opinion, I would rather get dusted by 40 like Notre Dame did last night than lose one I felt like I should win and like get hooked by a half point or lose on a couple free throws. Or like earlier this year, I had a big play on Boston College plus 7.5. They go to overtime, lose by 8. Like just being straight up wrong like I was last night is so much easier to stomach for me than it is like just the excruciating like loss where your handicap was correct and you feel and you really should have won. Yeah, I find that's not the case for our buyers. Because I got my share of hate DMs last night for the Notre Dame play.
Well, all right. Well, you know what? I was on the other end of that last night because, as most know that have been on the package, I have not played, but I don't know, maybe one handful of 3% plays in college hoop this year. And last night I dove into that pool with the Iowa State team total over 76.5, get to 75. And I have just been, and now that you bring it up, I mean, I don't know, 100 and some odd days into college basketball. And I think I had 14, 15 consecutive weeks of winning. And then the last 7 days, I'm being hooked, as you called it, or getting so close and not getting over because of missed layups, missed free throws, whatever. So it is more excruciating to lose it that way. The Iowa State game was painful last night. I wasn't even really close on the play I left here for our parlay. Michigan team total over. Never really had a chance. So that was a bad call on my part. But I was up. I tell you, I'm one of those guys. It's been going really good. And again, Adam, I think we have to just reiterate, we bet these games every single day of the year. I mean, my accounts wind up going down the same anybody else's. We're lucky I had a lot of equity built up so far this season, up until the last, I would say 7-8 days. But I was up at 348 this morning. It's like when things are just, when that one ball, when that one layup, when that one 3-pointer, like Milicevic had a 3-pointer at the wire last night that could have sent Iowa State over. When they're falling, great. When they're not falling, you wind up getting up early and saying, listen, we got to get back to work here. And that's kind of the way I treated this day. 348 this morning, wake up, get in this office, and I'm like, I got to get back to winning myself some money here. So we're back at it again. To the guys that are on the package, it's been so profitable over the course of the last 2.5 months. I don't know. I get maybe you come in one day and it was not good for either one of us yesterday. But that type of day has been so few and far between over the course of 100 plus days of college basketball that,
Yeah, and I've been basically saying, I for me it does, like after that happens, I typically I'll find something to switch up. So for me, the last like couple weeks, I've had very good results. Sort of trimming the card down to those couple of plays, and I've even texted you, thank God I didn't play plays 3 through 7 today or 4 through 8, right? Like we've talked about it. And so I tend to switch it up like after a night like last night, 0-2, especially with a result like Notre Dame, which just ended up not really like being close. But then, we talked about Baylor on the show yesterday. That one just never came back into range for me. Now, in hindsight, they end up covering all numbers, but I do think if you keep yourself disciplined to a number, like long term, that's going to you're going to do better than just like, okay, well, I love Baylor and 10 never came back around. So you know what? The hell with it. Let's just take 8. Like, yeah, it worked out last night, but long term, that's probably not going to work out. The last thing I'll say about like Notre Dame getting blown out by 40 is like, listen, it was, it's I look to play against Duke coming off a Michigan State win, knowing they have Virginia Tech on the weekend, and the fact that they were on the road in what should have been like a sleepy spot for them. Listen, Notre Dame comes out, can't get a 3 to fall, has a couple calls go against them in the early going. Shrewsbury picks up an early technical because he basically walked up to the ref and told the ref, like, hey, if you're going to call the game like this, I have no chance. I was basically, reading his lips. He got teed up 4 minutes into the game. And he's like, if you're not going to call that the same way, like, we have literally no shot. And that's just how it went. So I typically don't dwell on plays either way, win or lose. Yeah. When we win, we move on. But I just found it. I don't know. I don't understand why people lose their shit over a losing by 40. Like, to me, when you lose by a half point and you should have won, it is so much worse. But anyway, we address, listen, I don't know if the other shows do this, but every single day, the first 5 minutes of our show is sort of talking about the day previous, because that's what you guys asked us to do. So here to recap it, tough 0-2 for me last night, and we look to regroup today. Let's get into the feature game today, Rob Vino. I was at the first meeting between these two teams at Madison Square Garden. What an electric environment it was. St. John's and their fans showed out for that game. Way more St. John's fans than I expected to be, because, of course, we know over the years, even Rick Pitino, you like your quotes, right? What did he say? Well, there's going to be 10,000 of us and 9,000 of them at the Garden. And it wasn't that. It was all St. John's fans, a tremendous atmosphere. And St. John's played their game to perfection in that game. What do I mean by that? In my opinion, they took Seton Hall's blueprint. We've talked on this show about how successful Seton Hall has been against UConn over the years. And that's basically what St. John's did in that game. Ball pressure right off the bat. UConn couldn't get into the flow of their offense at all. And it totally disrupted the game to the point where then St. John's could really feed off of the crowd. They just had UConn flustered, Rob. For lack of a better way to describe it, UConn was flustered right off the bat and never could really settle into the game. Now, that's like we've seen. I'm going to make the parallel UConn Seton Hall, UConn St. John's, because of course we've seen UConn struggle with Seton Hall for a couple of years. We've actually now seen UConn struggle with St. John's for a couple of years, Rob, because last year St. John's got the better of this matchup. And even that really, really good, dominant UConn team that won the year before, I believe their toughest game on their stretch, of those, I think they won every game by double digits down the stretch, except for the St. John's game in the Big East tournament at Madison Square Garden, where St. John's was playing for a tournament bid, and they were right there in that game. So here's the sort of conundrum here. You now have St. John's being good priced into the number. This is very similar to when UConn played Seton Hall earlier this year, and they were only a 5.5 point road favorite. But Seton Hall ended up covering that number. So my question to you is St. John's do they match up so well here with UConn that they're the right side? Or are you on the other side where you're like, man, UConn's awfully cheap at home in this spot?
Yeah, a little of both, right? I mean, for UConn, I always like to do, what went wrong the first time around. For UConn, they get beat on the free throw line by 17 points, 22-5. St. John's outscored UConn on the free throw line in that game, 31 attempts to 12. And then over 21% of UConn's possessions turned into turnovers. And Danny Hurley, as well as they played against Villanova the other night, which was really a low price to lay with UConn, 1.5, 2 points against Nova. We did cash that one. Danny Hurley even mentioned after that game, team was great. Turnovers reared their ugly head again. Those are the things that St. John's presents to UConn that they'll have to handle this time, right? It's the physical toughness that UConn has to stand up to. And it's the turnover issues because St. John's defensively is predicated on forcing you to turn the ball over. So UConn, it's funny. Hurley, how about Hurley and Mick Cronin? I'll throw him in the loop here. Both heavily critical of their teams after poor performances, and both of the teams responded. UConn responded. The performance UConn had against Villanova the other night was really good. Up 21 second half, looked like Villanova never had a chance, easy cover. And for UCLA, ever since Mick Cronin got nationally crucified, UCLA's come out and trashed 2 teams in a row. So teams that are responding to coaches' criticism, teams that are good, that are responding to it. I think UConn at home will respond here. Again, St. John's doesn't do an awful lot really well, Adam, and they're not especially deep talent-wise, but what they do well, they do really, really well. The first game, UConn didn't let it get out of hand tempo-wise. There's really nothing, like I say, beyond the free throws and the turnovers that caused UConn to lose that game. And I would think the home atmosphere, I would think their ability to shoot threes. Remember, UConn's got 3 guys that shoot 40% from beyond the arc. St. John's doesn't have that. Their shooting ability, and they're statistically the better defensive team as far as field goal percentage allowed, 2-point, 3-point, et cetera. So get to the free throw line a little bit more, be a little more physical. UConn's deeper. I do think UConn wins this game, but you're right. I think it would be 4 losses in a row to St. John's tonight if they lose this one as well. But I think that Storrs is going to be ready for this gamble, and UConn probably comes out on top. That would be my look. I also, tell you the truth, I took a long look at the under here because I think it could be a defensive battle. It's gone up to 146.5, some 147s out there, 147.5. I see a couple as I look now. Maybe an under in this instance. The game went over the first time around. UConn, the thing that stopped me, Adam, really quick here, last 9 games UConn has played 8-1 over the total, and their team total is 8-1 to the over last 9. Scoring hasn't been the problem. It's been the defensive end, like Danny Hurley has said consistently, and I think they probably show up the way they did against Villanova here tonight.
Yeah, we have so Richie Action says in Vino we trust, best hoops capper. Thank you, Richie. Appreciate the encouragement there and the donation to the chat. See, as much as I think St. John's matches up well with UConn with their ability, like we've pretty much now know that UConn struggles a little bit with teams that can really get after them from on the defensive end, put pressure on their guards, force Demery to have to handle the ball a little bit. He had a really bad game against St. John's from a turnover standpoint. That is definitely the path to defeat this UConn team. But UConn is still a very good basketball team, and they still have what I consider to be if they're not the best coaching staff in the country, Rob, they're certainly up there. Danny Hurley and staff is as good as it gets. And at some point, I do think he's probably going to make the adjustments to offset some of the issues they've had with on the ball pressure against teams like Seton Hall and St. John's. Now, UConn was kind of even with St. John's playing well, UConn was right there in that game. St. John's made a couple of big shots late to sort of put it over the edge. If you go back to the game against Seton Hall, and the only reason I keep bringing up the Seton Hall game is because it is the true, like if we were to look for another comp game, Rob, you love to talk about, comparison type games to the first meeting with Seton Hall or the first meeting with St. John's. It is that Seton Hall game because of course Shaheen Holloway is all about like on the ball pressure, making you uncomfortable, and is really not going to beat you at the offensive end. That ended up being a 69-64 UConn win on the road at the Prudential Center. But I think UConn led, if I'm going off memory, by as much as 18 in the second half of that game, and really just kind of like, missed a few. They couldn't hit a 3. They went to sleep, and suddenly Seton Hall was like right there down 1. That's one thing that I don't think is going to happen tonight. I just don't think after losing the first meeting, Hurley is just not going to let this team not step on their throat if given the chance. And so for me, my number here is 7.6. It's absolutely enough to justify playing UConn at the opener of 5. I haven't looked at where it is since we hopped on the show. But for me, I do still see those redeeming matchup qualities where I'm not going to make the bet on UConn here, because I do think St. John's has those matchup advantages to at least stay in this game. If I was forced to play it, I'm definitely playing UConn. And to your point about the under, Rob, I think if UConn does bring that intensity, they are probably keeping St. John's from scoring a little bit, whereas we know that UConn's going to struggle a little bit with St. John's and the way they like to pressure the ball. So maybe you are on to something with an under in that game.
Yeah, and real quick, I'll just say one last thing. Beyond Bobby Hurley not allowing UConn, or at least having game plans devised, I think even the same weight needs to be put on the UConn players. It was important to me Saturday to see how they responded to coach criticism, and they did. And so the team knows they're better than what they've performed, and the team wants this revenge game against St. John's. It's a proving ground. I don't know, Adam. Ejiofor gets into foul trouble, and St. John's to me is toast in any game. I don't know that they can come back off of that, and UConn does have 10 fouls to give there. They should play him a little more physical here tonight. They're going to have to, because Ejiofor really was a deciding factor in the first game.
All right, let's move it along. Let's go to Garth here. He says, I wasn't keeping track, but this is good, Garth. He says 6-0 run on chat plays, 3-0 on picking bottom dwellers. Oh, yeah, he did have Garth did win his over in that San Jose State Air Force game yesterday, which is, I actually think Air Force ended up covering. If you go back to the conversation we had about that one, I think we kind of said dog and over. Certainly the over got there easily. Garth, maybe I'll throw you in the parlay today and make it a 3-teamer. Just to switch that up a little bit. But let's see if we like your side here first. If Rob and I agree on your side, maybe that's what we'll do. So what Garth says is, let's try it again. Thoughts on the Citadel plus 15.5 against Furman. Citadel won the first meeting 77-75 in overtime. Yeah, they did win the first meeting in overtime, and that was kind of a historic result for Citadel to win that game and to beat Furman. I do believe that they already had started to turn the corner. So if you go back to the beginning of the year, I was very much out on Citadel doing anything. I think I said that, I went as far as to say that this team might not win a conference game. Now, they hadn't won a conference game last year, and on paper, their roster was heavily like non-D1 talent, which caused me to make that assumption that they might be the worst team in the league. Two things have happened for that not to be the case. Now, they're still near the bottom, but 6-10 is massively impressive for this Citadel team this season in conference play, coming from where they were last year in conference play and what they were projected to be this year. But I think there's two reasons for that. One, I think they are better than anyone anticipated, including the market. So if you've been betting Citadel to this point, you're probably doing pretty well, because they've been underdogs in pretty much every game in a cover machine. But the other thing is they are playing into as bad of a SoCon as you've had in recent memory. It's very NJIT-esque, and the way they're doing well in the America East this year. Well, the America East is as bad as it's been maybe since its inception. And the SoCon is not far behind. I mean, you've got some teams, Rob, like East Tennessee and Mercer, who are having nice seasons, but, Samford ran this league with Bucky McMillan for years. They've taken a step back, just 9-7 in the league. Chattanooga was a team that many thought would win this league this year. They're also 6-10, lost some key players at the outset and have just not been the same team. VMI is a bad team. NC Greensboro is a bad team. Western Carolina is a bad team. So, that's kind of the thing with Citadel, I think, is, they're equal parts taking advantage of playing weaker teams this year, but they've also improved. Now, you can't argue with that first score. Like, they beat this Furman team, but they also beat them on their home floor. And now they head to Furman. Citadel's 2-11 on the road this year. And they head to a Furman team that I I guess I'll lean on you here a little bit, Rob, because at one point I was going to make a case that Furman was improving. You know, if you go back to the beginning of the season, this team turned the ball over a ton. It did not look like a Bob Ritchie type Furman team. But when you look at their results over the month of February, they've lost 4 of 6 and they haven't been very impressive. So is Garth onto something, taking the points here with the Citadel team that already has a win over the Paladins this season?
It's a tough call. The thing that would probably lean me toward Garth is the number 15.5. But I do think Furman's going to win this game. Remember the first time around, Adam, and I remember watching the Samford game, and they beat Samford in that game, but they played a lot of games without Thomas and Bowser. And Citadel was one of the games that they played without Asa Thomas and without Bowser. And now that they're both back, you would have expected your last point that they would be on the move now, climbing the standings. And yet the first couple of games when Asa Thomas came back, I was like, well, maybe he just needs to get reacclimated. He's been out so long. But they still haven't been churning out wins. Now they're 2 of their last 3. Maybe things are going right now. But 15.5 is a little bit shaky. I will say this too. First game, Furman without those 2 guys held a 40-28 lead at halftime. They were up 12 in that game that they lost in OT. So they let that slip away. But the lineup is whole, which scares me, especially at SoCon tournament time, because when I watched the Samford game a few games back, the broadcast team was alluding to how much better Bob Ritchie's team would be when Thomas and Bowser got back, et cetera, et cetera. It hasn't quite developed yet, but I feel like it's going to. He's too good of a coach. They probably have as much talent as anybody. Again, the only thing that would scare me if I was betting Furman would be you're laying too much. So that's Garth's point. Let's take Citadel with 15.5. Better than that, though. Let's get off of this side for a second here. I think this total gets over. People have bet it that way. It's open 138. We're looking at 141.5, 142 at this point in time. The first game had 134 at the end of regulation without Asa Thomas and Bowser involved. Furman should score here at home. Citadel should do enough to help out. I just don't see how this game doesn't make 143. This may make my card for clients here today, this total over. I don't want to let the 141.5 slip away, so it would be sooner rather than later if it gets there. But I do see Furman as a team now that probably is easily, I'll say easily, a mid-70s type scoring team and above. Now that they're fully healthy for like the last 5 or 6 games. And we'll see where the SoCon tournament goes. But I can't disagree with Garth, but I would say my stronger feeling is on total going over.
All right, Garth, let's do it. We got to get some, we got to switch the mojo up in the parlay. I wanted to do a 3-teamer anyway today. We hit that 3-teamer with Brian Power, put ourselves ahead, haven't won one since. And my number here on Citadel is 14.1. So that to me, and that right there is, I trust that more because we're at the point in the year where I've pretty much like sucked any priors out for the most part. Like I have priors weighted very low in my figures now because we're in the middle of, we're late February. So like at this point, you really are what you are. Like looking at like what a team was projected to be is not as relevant anymore. And the reality is Citadel's played like pretty good basketball for this league. They have the win over Chattanooga. They have the win over Furman. They've, even in their last couple games, they took Samford, who I still think is a pretty good team in this league, to a 3-point final. Even the Mercer game was very close to this number. They ended up losing it by 16. But like for me, like Mercer has been far better than Furman has this year. And I think even with the guys back, I still have Mercer, quite a cut above Furman in my power ratings for this league. So let's do it. 15.5. I'm at 14.1 here. That'll be the first leg of the parlay. We're going to throw Garth in the parlay with the Citadel. But he said that the cellar dwellers have been hitting for him. So let's take the points with the Citadel. They won the first, meaning we only need for them to keep it within 15 here. I'm in agreement. I think it's a better game. And here's the thing. Furman is not really, they don't really do things right now to inspire confidence winning games by 15 or more. They turn the ball over a lot. There's a lot of what I think the term when I was playing basketball a long, long time ago was game slippage, Rob, is what Furman has. They make a lot of like what feels to be like unforced mistakes. And it is very difficult to cover 16 if you're going to kind of, keep teams in the game that way. But Jacob says we just jinxed Garth. Well, if you think we jinxed Garth, then Furman probably scored a ton of points. So maybe you lean toward Rob's over if that's the case. But we're going to use Garth's leg in the parlay. So that'll be the first leg. You can blame me. It's easier to blame me anyway because I'm co-signing it. So we'll say the Citadel plus 15.5. At the very least, I do think there's like a little bit of a numerical edge there. I think it should be closer to 14. So 15.5 it is. All right, we're moving right along. Let's go to another game here. Let's get back to the super chat. We got a couple more starred. Mad Max, appreciate the donation. This was one I was very interested to talk about. Actually, I almost made this our feature game, so I'm glad someone brought it up. Mad Max says Texas has a strong front court, can go toe-to-toe on the glass with Florida. They're 6th in the nation for adjusted offensive efficiency. Hold your nose. Texas plus 6.5 or some plus 7s. I think we're there as we came onto the show. I don't know if it's moved off of 7 or the team is the team total safer. Max, I'm with you on the handicap. I definitely, but the thing is, and Rob will probably make this point. I won't steal his thunder. I'll just tee him up. If they don't foul Florida, they probably hang around. But if Vokatitis is like in foul trouble and not on the court, then you might have trouble with Florida's front court. And the concern, I don't know, Rob, Florida's starting to make some shots. Do you think that this is like a don't poke the bear moment for Florida because their guards are starting to play well too? Talk to me about Texas, Florida.
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll say is 6.5 is no longer available. I'm looking at 5.5s now.
Wow. Okay. So someone else likes Texas. Look at that.
5.5 just popped. 6s down from 6.5. There's a 6.5 from no, forget that. 5.5. The board keeps switching here. So again, we're in that window where action is coming across the screen here. So yeah, 5.5. A lot of Texas love here. And the point is well made because you want to have a team that can deal with Florida's front court, obviously. And then the back court, even with Florida having both of their guys, Boogie Fland and Xavier Lee, playing better in the backcourt, I think Texas backcourt still matches up fairly decent as well. It's not like that's a blowout situation in favor of Florida, but those guys make the Florida engine really rev on all 8 cylinders when they're playing good. I think what's probably sold short a little bit here, Adam, is Florida because they score so many points. What gets lost in the shuffle is how good they are defensively. They're the number 1 defensive efficiency team inside the Southeastern Conference, which is a huge accolade because there's so many good offenses inside this league. They don't let you score at the rim. Texas will probably have to score at the rim. And 2, Mad Max, I think it was, to his point, Texas does have interior players, Vokatitis especially, that can finish at the rim against these guys, but it's not going to be easy. So the total here, I'm going to get off track just a little bit because we've mentioned that a lot of money loves Texas, and I'm not going to talk anybody off of Texas. The total here at 157.5 would have to include a ton of pace. And it's at this time of year, a lot of times will get me into trouble. I'll put it that way because the total's better. I like overs and the defenses start to clamp down because seedings are so important now as games are running out heading into conference tournament time, whether it be postseason resumes or whether it be conference tournament seedings. For Texas, in a 4-way tie at 8-6, the game does become huge for them. I mean, if you're looking for situational, meaningful mindset, focus, motivation, all that type of stuff, the exterior stuff, Texas has all of that here. Florida's got a 2-game lead inside the league. If they blow one, it really doesn't matter. They're still the 1 seed. Could it affect them from being on the 1 line? Tournament time, maybe, but it doesn't mean you have to win by 6. So all this to say that maybe the total is a tick too high here at 158. I don't know that I'm willing to bet it because the offenses are explosive and the tempo could get pretty high in this one. But I would expect both of these teams to bring a little bit of defense to the table here. And as you said, Adam, if Vokatitis foul trouble, just cross your fingers and hope he doesn't see the bench, because Sean Miller doesn't really have a guy to match up with any of those Florida front court players if he has to leave the game.
Yeah, I think the whistle is going to be so impactful to like both sides in total here, because it's like if it becomes, I mean, it could theoretically become a foul fest, and then you're talking about, if both teams are just living at the free throw line, it's probably going to go over, even at that high number of like 157, 158, because I do think Texas probably scores some points in this game. So the thing is, if Texas is taking money, I think that would correlate to the over a little bit, because I don't think Texas is covering 7.5. Forget 7.5. They're certainly not covering 5.5, or, if they're not scoring the basketball, because like Florida, we know that they can score even if they're not hitting shots. And then when they are hitting shots, they can really score, because this was an offense that was still rating near the top of many efficiency sort of leaderboards earlier this year, when Xavier and Lee and Boogie Fland were both like in terrible shooting slumps. And now they're starting to shoot the ball a little bit. So I don't have like tons of faith in Texas, like being able to just get like stop after stop against Florida, but I do think that they can score, which makes me lean toward the over. But if I had to, my number was 7.1. So I was right on market here initially. And that's why I kind of like moved on from this game. I don't have any interest in like punching back though with Florida, because my initial lean was Texas at the number of 7. So like, just because it's moved 1.5 doesn't really make me want to go with the other side. And I do think that in a game like this, you will absolutely see Florida money come in at 5.5. There is going to be a segment of the market that is going to see Florida minus 5.5 and will pounce at that. So I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up back at like 6.5 relatively soon. Maybe it even gets back to 7. I would be on the Longhorns because, Rob, as you know, if you've watched this show, I've been pretty pro Texas for the last couple months. I took Texas. So here's the thing, though. I took Texas. Now, they were on the road. I took Texas plus 7 against Kentucky. They were able to hang around and win that game. So I guess now they're getting 7 at home against Florida. But Florida's like much, much better. Like, this is a much, much better team. So I think it comes down to like how much you're weighting home court here. It's kind of a tricky one. I lean toward the Longhorns. I guess I agree with that money move, but you're not going to see me bet it. I would probably need more like 8.5 or 9 to bet Texas here. At 7, 6, 6.5. It's just going to be a lean for me. Okay. Let's continue on. I will go to Rob. Have you ever ate alligator? The chat has gone off tangent. I didn't love it. I had it like once, but maybe it's because I had it like fried and like breaded or something, and it just kind of tasted like anything else that was put into like a deep fryer. I don't know. I didn't feel like I had to go get alligator again after I tried it. So maybe I need to have it prepared differently. Yeah, that's what right here. Joe Joyner. That's the same thing. He goes, I had gator bites that tasted like rubbery chicken. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
It wouldn't Bayou be an expert in how to prepare alligator?
Probably. That seems like it's up his alley. Maybe, yeah. I don't know if Bayou's, he might be in here listening or whatever, but yeah, Bayou, let us know if you've ever made alligator and if that's a
different
dish
than
of
rubbery
choice.
chicken.
Andy Lang is here. He said it can't be breaded, properly seasoned and grilled. It's delicious. Okay, I'll give it. Okay, he's back. Bayou's back. He says it's about the sauce. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's All right, let's go to this one. We had a couple of sorry, I didn't mean to get off tangent here. We got an 11 a.m. tip today, Rob Vino, out in the Patriot League. And we have had some success talking Patriot League basketball on the show. There's quite a few people that have brought this up. This was not supposed to be an 11 a.m. game. I believe I think this one was moved up a couple of times. I know it was like a few days back, it was a 3 o'clock start. Now, I don't know if it was moved up from 3 or they were going to originally play a 3 o'clock game today, but now they're playing at 11 a.m. So Colin Gregory says Bucknell or nothing. At the number, I kind of agree. So this opened Army -2. It's moved to Army -3.5. I agree with the sentiment that it does feel like you're getting a little value with Bucknell at the number of 3.5. But then there's also the problem that like these are just two bad basketball teams. And from just an effort standpoint, I've liked Army from an effort standpoint and a game in and game out basis more than I've liked Bucknell. Now, these two teams are playing for something, Rob Vino. In the Patriot League, everyone makes the conference tournament. And they are host site games, which means the opening round of the Patriot League tournament is going to be 7 hosting 10 and 8 hosting 9. So you really, if you're in that bottom group and you have to play in the opening round, obviously you would much rather have a home game. And both of these teams still control their own destiny to hosting a game in the 7-8 window. I think there's even a scenario where they could, if they win out, either of these teams win out, they could win their way. It might be tough for them to win their way out of 7 through 10, but they can certainly win their way into hosting an opening round game. So it is a game of importance here. This is at West Point at 11 a.m., which means it goes off in 23 minutes. I'm with Colin. If I was absolutely forced to bet this game, it'd be Bucknell plus the points. But I haven't neither team gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling. So my question to you is, what about the total? Anything for an 11 a.m. start down in West Point?
Well, the first thing for me, and this has nothing to do with fundamentals, but situationally, if I'm going to play either of these teams at 11 a.m., it's going to be the Service Academy. I got to figure they're wide awake at 11 a.m. Bucknell could sleep through a half at 11 a.m. So I would look maybe Army early. And the first time around was 87, 84, something like that in overtime. But it was 80-80 at the end of regulation, 160 points by these two teams. Both shot it well. Neither team plays defense. So we're staring at 142.5 here. I can understand the movement up in the total, open 141. Even seeing a couple of stray 143s kick up now as we get closer to game time. So I wouldn't disagree with that. And if I'm going to somewhat lean Army, I guess team total wise, I'd be more favorable to taking the Army side, team total over. But I think you wouldn't want to exclude Bucknell from this, even though, like I say, there is some thought in my mind that Bucknell could not be all there energy-wise first half of this game. Now, to your point, both tied at 5-11 inside the league. Both need to win. The Holy Cross is with them at 5-11. So certainly a huge game if you're trying to get a home spot inside the conference tournament. But I would think the game probably goes over based off of what we saw the first time around and based off the fact that neither team has played much defense so far this season. 142.5 doesn't seem like too steep of a hill to climb. And last thing here is we saw overtime the first time. If you play over, at least you got overtime in your pocket here. It could happen again.
Yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to just back out of making an opinion on the side. You make a good point. The 11 a.m. start probably does benefit Army. Yes, they're probably more rigid in their daily schedule, but also, being at home when these games and the scheduling and stuff gets moved around, and I feel like it typically is going to affect the traveling team a little bit more, the road team. Whereas Army, they're going to go about their day and just sort of move stuff up. They're still, sleeping in their own beds and stuff like that. Neither of these teams contest shot very well. So that's the thing that helps Army out big time here is Army does not get to the rim or get to the free throw line. They are very jump shot reliant, but Bucknell, will pretty much give you like whatever you want from a jump shot standpoint. Army's probably going to get quite a few open threes here. Remember, this Bucknell team last year was so good because Noah Williamson was a generational talent, rim defender, post scorer. Like, I remember games last year where Williamson would not be on the court. He would get in foul trouble or so on and so forth. And Bucknell would be a completely different team, for the worse, obviously. And I think that's just what we've seen play out in like long form this year. Is this Bucknell team had last year, they just had a insane talent that could almost dominate the Patriot League on his own, right? Noah Williamson, he's now at Alabama, right, Rob? Like, how often can you say that? Oh, Bucknell, they lost their best player to Bama, right? Like, it just doesn't really happen that often from this league. So again, Bucknell has sort of regressed into just a sort of nothing bad basketball team. Army is kind of a nothing bad basketball team too, but they will play hard. And one thing Army will do is just jack shots up. So they could really like ramp up the pace of this game on their own, because like you'll see Army get down the floor and sometimes it's Ryan Curry just pulling a three. It's like, they are not shy when it comes to shooting. Now, making them's a whole different story. Like that's why they're 5-11 and near the bottom of their league, but the shot volume will probably be there. And in a game like this, neither team block shots or contest shots. So if you get some shots falling early, this one could get up near the total of last game, which was I think in the 160s. And you only need low 140s to get it done here. So I can't disagree with Colin though. If from a numbers perspective, I do think 3.5 is forcing you to pay a premium to back Army. But Rob, I also kind of agree with you where maybe the premium is warranted. So I'm going to like take myself out of the side and I'll lean toward the over if you feel inclined to have yourself some 11 a.m. hoop action on a Wednesday afternoon. All right, let's I am going to give out a client play for the parlay. So if you want me to go first, I'll go first. It's up to you. If you want to go or I can go. If you want a second to think about it, I'll throw my game out. But I have two, so I don't want to steal yours. So if you can go first.
No, go ahead, because I would have more than one anyway. So go ahead.
All right. So, again, we literally never script the show. We come on and say, all right, we got a feature game, and then it really is just off the dome for the next hour. We go based on where you guys want to go. I have 2 plays locked in so far for today. So I'm just going to give, I don't think either has been asked about in the chat. So I'm just going to give, I'll give one of them out. Let's talk Arkansas and Texas A&M. Robino, I'm laying the points with the Razorbacks here. I laid 7.5. I will put 7.5 minus 120 in the parlay because I do see that it's ticked up a little bit. I think the Razorbacks absolutely destroy Texas A&M tonight. We talked about Arkansas over the weekend. Kelly brought up the Arkansas-Missouri game. I said the only way I could play that, and the only way I'm playing Arkansas games right now is Arkansas or pass. We've been talking about them for a couple months now. I think I said after Brian Power and I went to the Arkansas-Michigan State game first week of the season, I said this is a team that's going to continue to get better. They're going to be a team that in February I'm going to want to be on. And so far, they're against the spread record in February is very good. I got a little bit scared off by the number on Saturday, and I'm glad I did because, of course, that game, Arkansas led by 14 with 2 minutes to go and ended up only winning by 8. I believe, I think it was like 8.5 or 9. So Missouri snuck in and backdoored them right at the end in a game that Arkansas had a 14-point lead with 2 minutes to go. I think this matchup is better for Arkansas than Missouri was. The Bucky ball style, I think Arkansas is going to have a much easier time scoring the basketball than they theoretically should have against the Dennis Gate zone. So it's like, to me, okay, so here's just a little comparison, right? Arkansas was home over the weekend, laying more than this in what was probably a worse matchup. Now they're still home, where we know the home road splits are considerable this year and historically. and they're laying less points against, what maybe is a little bit better of a team, but what should really be a better matchup for the Razorbacks. So I think if Arkansas gets that 14-point lead in this one, they're not giving it back, Rob Vino. I think they're going to score potentially at will. I'm laying it with Arkansas, but do you have any interest on the total there?
I think it's a little bit, and it's hard to say it's high in an Arkansas game, but with A&M combined, it is kind of high. So I would probably lay off, but I would not disagree at all. What we're seeing out of Arkansas right now is as good as, Florida's obviously on a huge roll. So I won't say Florida's probably been a little bit better, but Arkansas, Florida right now playing like the two best teams in that particular conference. So you're not going to get any argument out of me against Arkansas here. They had a rough situational play against Mizzou last game, and Mizzou did sneak in under the number, but credit to Arkansas for coming back home and winning that game off of the 117-115 double OT loss. So, I would not argue against Arkansas in any way, shape, or form. I would just be a little lenient of playing, or a little leery of playing a total in that price range with these two.
All right, let's do this. Mad Max has a donation, so let's go to his play, and we'll go to Mad Max. He says Vino, specifically Vino. So I'm going to let you kick this one off. We're going to stay in the SEC. I think this is a good transition here. We'll go ahead and stay in the SEC. Mad Max says Vino, I love the Alabama team total tonight. Boy, over 94.5. That is an awfully big number. But then again, maybe it's warranted because can Alabama name their score tonight against Mississippi State, Rob? What do you think?
Well, generally, they could name their side of the scoreboard against anybody, really. They're going to play at that speed. They're going to make their shots. What's interesting here, Adam, is the money toward Mississippi State. And people who obviously think that Mississippi State has turned some form of a corner at this point in time. I'm not so sure that I agree. But here's what I will say. Chris Jans has this team playing slightly better defense. They haven't played really good defense all season long. But I would agree in the fact that it's going to get out of hand for them. And it could get out of hand quickly as far as point production for Alabama is concerned. If you're playing side, you have to try and guess if Mississippi State is going to match points with Alabama. But Mississippi State's going to do zero defensively, even though they've been playing better lately. They're going to do zero defensively that's going to deter Alabama from scoring points in this game. Biggest questions you have here, again, you don't worry about scoring opportunities. You're going to get those. You don't worry about Alabama reaching high 80s. You're probably going to get it. You're trying to climb over 94.5 here, and you need them to shoot it fairly well to get to that point. So odds makers haven't made it easy, Mad Max, with this one, because 95 is a tall mountain to climb. We saw last week that, when a team can score with them and push them like Arkansas did, you can wind up. Obviously, that game went double overtime, but I think at the end of regulation, they were still in the 180s. Question would become, will Nate Oates let up if there's a wide margin at the end of the game? My answer to that would be no. I think I said yesterday, we try and keep a little notebook on these coaches, and ones that take their foot off the pedal and are nice to the opponent, and others that just keep scoring. I forget which team we were referring to yesterday, but that's kind of the way I see Nate Oates. So I'm not going to disagree with it. I think it's in a delicate spot for me to ask for 95 here, because I could see, 94 loses that bet. And 94 would be a really good offensive night for Alabama. So when I think of it in those terms, again, I wouldn't talk you off it because Alabama is more than capable. I just don't know that I would be on it.
Yeah, listen, I do think I think maybe the opener was probably a little bit high. Like, I don't. Okay, so I like Alabama. I would only play Bama in this game, but I can see where people are coming from a numbers perspective, saying, okay, 15.5 at the open was too high. Now, this is one where I would punch back a little bit, especially if that hit 13. I was right around 13 personally. So I don't think it's going to go lower than 13. I doubt you see like a 12.5. But if you had a book move it a little too far and got to like 13, maybe even like 13.5, I guess is fine. I think that's where you can consider to start playing Alabama. For me, I would much rather have Bama minus 13.5 than need 95 points. That's just me. I think you need a very efficient scoring night from Bama to get 95 in this one. And like you said, like Arkansas is going to pretty much push that tempo throughout because Arkansas is going to be able to stay in that game. My concern here, Rob, would be Bama gets themselves a pretty big lead and suddenly, even if it's subconscious, maybe they take the air out of the ball a little bit, right? Like over the weekend, they only put up 90 against LSU. It's not that they probably can't score more than that against LSU. It's that the win didn't require them to do more than like what they did. So like that's my fear. Like you're saying, like they could win this game. Like they could drop 93, win in a blowout, and still have had a very good offensive night. That's my only concern going back to the original question on the team total. But I definitely like Bama. It would be Bama or nothing. So how you play that is up to you. Me personally, I would take the discount on the opener and just lay the 13.5 if I was going to play this one. Okay. And just to go back to the first meeting, I mean, it was 97-82. I don't think I see like that different of a game, but that you're still, so you might be asking for it either way. It could very well land near the number and near the team total. We know the books are very good at this, and it would not be out of the question. All right, Robina, what about closing out this 3-teamer? What are you looking at?
All right, let's do it. Let's go out to the Mountain West tonight, Adam, and what is the most important game. Could have been a feature game for sure. San Diego State at home against Utah State. Both teams enter in here on losing notes. Utah State beat by Nevada the other night. How about Nevada wins over Utah State in New Mexico back-to-back in Reno, putting themselves back into contention here. But this game is first place, or the number one seed. It would allow San Diego State to get back into a tie with Utah State. Utah State did win the first meeting by 5 points, and I think there's a good revenge angle here for the San Diego State team. Listen, I have to tell you, I love the construction of the Utah State team. And when they start hitting shots, man, they create separation better than anybody inside this conference. Utah State's unique because there are times when Jared Calhoun will go to lineups with 4 ball handlers on the floor. And you don't see that very often with 4 guys that can shoot and handle the ball. However, for San Diego State here, we know the tradition is the tradition. The perception is the perception. They're the best defensive team in this league. And the first time around, they did lose by 5 in Logan. But they did contain MJ Collins, who is your biggest concern on Utah State. You got to slow him down. They slowed him down. He only scored 12 points, 1 of 5 inside the arc, 2 of 9 outside the arc. That's a 3 of 14 game combined on his own home floor. I think San Diego State can do that again, Adam. And I think they can improve the way that they shot the basketball in that game. Maybe a couple home whistles to go with this. This game is basically pick 'em here. Let me just get the current. I'm showing San Diego State at -1, 1.5 in some spots, but -1 here. I like the situation. I like the spot. I like the fact that they shut Utah's best player down the first time around. So I'm going to go San Diego State here at home to force a tie inside the Mountain West. I think it's a good spot for them. And for those who haven't seen a little bit of San Diego State basketball this year, this team they're a tick better offensively than they've been in the past. They do have ability to score. So I'm going to try that side here, Adam. It's not a total play today, guys. Apologize for that, but it is a side play that I think is pretty strong. San Diego State -1 over Utah State.
Muted. Do you know the last time that San Diego State lost 3 straight games was way back in Brian Dutcher's first season?
Oh, don't do that.
They haven't lost because they haven't lost 3 straight games I know. I mean, listen, hey, we're trying to talk about it from all angles. No, that's like what I'm saying is that supports your side. Like San Diego State has been excellent off of a loss historically in the Dutcher era. They've been very good off a loss. Off of 2 losses, they've been almost automatic. Dutcher has not lost 3 straight since his first year in charge. So what I'm saying is, like, from a spot standpoint, you have to like San Diego State. The one thing I did like, here's the thing with San Diego State for me, because my this is one numbers wise, I'm at 3.7. So my number leans pretty hard to San Diego State from like where this opened at pick and where it is now at -1. I guess another thing that I would look at, like, I do think Utah State's probably the better team, but the thing with Utah State is like they've uncharacteristic some of the games that they've lost in the fashion that they've lost this year. Like this team is not really closing games out. They blew the lead. Was it UNLV? They blew a lead and they were a pretty big favorite in doing so. I think it was UNLV. They were like a 17-point favorite at home and like found a way to blow that game. That's something that I think like the elite Utah State teams of past years would not have done. Yeah, they ended up kind of getting blown out in the end there. Just to clarify, they lost that game by 10 at home to a bad Utah State team or UNLV team. And then like over the weekend, it just felt like it felt like they were just going to end up winning at some point against Nevada and until they didn't. So it's like, and you could even lump the Grand Canyon game in there because it was a road game. So now you've got two examples of San Diego State on the road. They were never really in that Grand Canyon game. I had Grand Canyon in that game, and Grand Canyon took a lead and never really gave it back. I mean, they were up. They led pretty much that entire game, and they dominated them pretty much that entire game. So my only like criticism of San Diego State, and I think what keeps me off personally, at least to this point, they can be very inconsistent offensively. And if you get the inconsistent performance where they have like one of these games where no one could put the ball in the basket, Utah State might be the team that's tough to beat with your like San Diego State's as good as anyone at like, oh, we had a bad offensive game. No problem. Our defense will beat you. They've done it so many times in Mountain West play. I don't know if they can do that to Utah State, but if their offense is, if this is one of the games where the Aztecs offense shows up, I think they're in like a very good spot to get a win. So that's just my thoughts on it. I'm not going to disagree with you. And San Diego State, it is. So 3 sides in the 3-teamer, Rob. I didn't ask Garth's permission if I could put him in, but that's okay. I'll take the blame. So if Citadel covers, all the credit to Garth. If they don't, Trig will take the blame. That's how we'll do this one, because my numbers actually very much like all 3 games in this parlay. I've got a number edge on Citadel. I've got a pretty nice number edge on your San Diego State play. And then, of course, one of my biggest number edges of the day is a 4% play for me on Arkansas, which I gave for free on the show, and I will use in the parlay. So our 3-teamer tonight, Arkansas -7.5, San Diego State -1, and Citadel +15.5. I'll put -120 juice on the Arkansas leg. So it's -110, -110, -120. That will be the 3-teamer. I didn't do much promoting during the show, but like always, win or lose, rain or shine, Rob and I are here every day. Rob and I have a package up every day. If you want to ride with us for the rest of the season, email into customer support, let them know that you want the joint package, and you'll get all of our plays through, I like to say, through one shining moment, Rob, when they're playing that horrible song on Monday night after the final, which is amazing. As much as they've changed, they took our court designs away. They put people that know nothing about college basketball on the broadcast of the NCAA tournament. They will not change one shining moment. They're still going to fire that us at like 1 a.m. Eastern time after the championship game, no matter what. But listen, I've got 2 plays locked in already for today. I expect to have more. I'm probably going to come out firing today just to switch it up a little bit. Rob's got plays locked in, and we're ready to cash. So let's finish February strong. And win or lose, we'll be back 10 a.m. tomorrow morning to do it again. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the morning.